I come to you today as part of my nefarious plan to convince the world, little by little, that Dragon Age 2 is good actually. There's a lot of ways I could do that. For instance, I could talk about the way the side quests are set up to actually make you invested and care about doing them throughout the entire game. I could discuss how the framing device of it being a story told from memory helps give in-universe reasons for a lot of the shortcomings in the combat encounters and level design. I could even go on about how it has the most cohesive cast in the entire series. But those are all much larger topics to be tackled at a later time. Today, we are going to narrow our scope to one specific quest near the beginning of the game that explores the idea of choice and had such a shaking impact on me as a teenager that it actually helped me become a better and more accepting person. Let's talk about shepherding wolves. Minor spoiler warning, as this quest comes pretty early on in the game's first act. Before we can begin talking about the quest proper, I'm going to provide some context for those who might not be as familiar with the Dragon Age series. The Dragon Age world of Thedas has many different religious beliefs, from the Dalish elves who worship the ancient elven pantheon, to the dwarves who worship their own ancestors, to the most widespread religion, the Chantry. Think Christianity if, instead of worshipping Jesus, they worship Joan of Arc. But the religious faction that's most relevant to today's discussion is known as the Qun. Although, calling the Qun a religion is a bit of a misnomer. It's more like a rigid set of rules and guidelines for how one is to live their life. From an early age, or from when one is converted, a person is scrutinized and psychologically profiled so that their role in the Qun can be determined. If you're particularly smart, or a people person, or a capable soldier who follows orders, everyone can be of use to the Qun. And a Qunari's goal is to always play their role so Qunari society will function efficiently like a well-oiled machine. When you adopt your role, that role is your identity. When you meet, or more often than not fight, Qunari, the name they go by isn't actually their name. It's their rank or position. It would be like if every baker was named Baker, or every soldier was named Soldier, or if every politician was named Scum-Sucking Leech. Every religion in Thedas treats magic differently. The Chantry is quite strict towards mages. Anyone with magical talent is locked away into towers called the Circle of Magi and are taught to control their magic or die trying. But the Chantry has nothing on the Qunari. If anyone shows a hint of magical talent in the Qun, they are labeled as Cerebos, literally translating to dangerous thing, and are collared, bound, and have their mouths sewn shut so they cannot bring harm to themselves or others. If you speak to other Qunari about mages, Cerebos are looked on more as a thing to be pitied rather than feared. They did not choose to be born with magic, and now an otherwise capable individual who would be able to contribute to the Qun must be bound. Which leads us nicely into the side quest in question. During the first act, you are trying to accumulate gold so that you can invest in an expedition and raise yourself out of the slums. So you search around town and follow up on rumors for potential jobs. One such job rumored is that a Chantry sister named Patrice is offering good money for someone from the poor district of Kirkwall, Lowtown, to smuggle something out of the city for her. Upon arriving to meet her, we find her stupidly willing to go into a back alley with some shady people after having just admitted that yes, she does in fact have a bunch of gold on her. You save her from assailants, and after she thanks you, she asks you to meet her at a safe house elsewhere in Lowtown for more details of the job. Upon arrival, it is revealed that what she needs smuggled out of Kirkwall is a Qunari Cerebos. Since he will not speak, she has taken to calling him Katojan. Assuming that he would want freedom, like anyone else would, she wants him smuggled out of the city and set free. You make your way through the sewers and encounter some ruffians. Cerebos doesn't appreciate the one whom he is currently following being threatened, and a fight quickly breaks out. After the fight, Cerebos calms himself down with just a single command from the player character, Hawk. Once outside the city, you find a group of Qunari who had actively been searching for this Cerebos, who had been separated from his group after a battle. How exactly it plays out after this varies entirely based on your choices. You can either hand Cerebos over, at which point he will be executed because he was away from his handlers for too long and he could have been corrupted. The Qunari will then attack you, as you could have been corrupted by the Cerebos. Alternatively, you could not hand him over and wish for his freedom, at which point the Qunari will either attack you to get Cerebos back, or because you let it slip that you have mages among you. Once you successfully fend off the Kunari and are able to free the mage from his mute bindings, he thanks you. He then tells you that what you just did was wrong, and that he should have gone back to the Kunari to be executed. With his newfound freedom, he chooses to submit to what the Qun demands, and he takes his own life. Let's do a little unpacking now, shall we? Starting with the conversation with Sister Patrice. I find it interesting that at no point in this conversation about why the sister is so invested in helping this Kunari does anyone even bother to ask him whether he even wants to be freed. It's not even a dialogue option that you can choose. It's not up for debate because, well, look at him. Why would any sane creature willingly submit themselves to this? Obviously he wants to be free, who wouldn't? Our worldview says that he should, so we should make sure he is. In the name of altruism, views are already being imposed upon him. Patrice doesn't even care what his name is or look up what his name would be under the Qun. She decides to name him Katogen, and that's what he's referred to as until after we meet up with the Kunari outside. After the fight in the sewers, where the Cerebos defends its current master, Hawk can attempt to communicate with Cerebos. They ask him questions. Two things worth noting is that this is the first time anyone has bothered asking him any questions, and this is the first time he's bothered communicating with anyone else. Granted, it's all in the form of gurgles and grunts, but still. It's significant because it shows that he isn't just a thing to be carted around. He has thoughts. He has opinions. Even if they can't be conveyed at the moment, he is a person with his own will underneath all those chains. At which point, we meet the Cerebos' people. From my recap earlier, you'll probably notice something. No matter what you do, no matter how you handle this situation, it will always end in a fight, and it will always end in the death of Cerebos. Because sometimes in life, there are some things that are unavoidable no matter what we do. But the journey we take to get to those moments is just as important as those moments themselves. Because it says more about us, how we respond to the circumstances. And in this case, you have a choice. You have an individual in your custody, and his people are demanding you hand him over. What do you believe? Do you believe that they're his people, so they have the right to do with him as they want? Do you believe that he should have the choice to go back or not? Do you believe, fuck it, I was paid to take him out of the city, here you go? Or do you fundamentally disagree with the Kunari society and refuse to let him be taken by them? Because it's painfully apparent that they're not going to take him back, give him some ice cream, and tell him it's all going to be okay, and they're sorry he had such a stressful day. No, they're going to kill him. Obviously. But the fact that they're going to do that regardless isn't the point. The game is asking you, how do you feel? What do you believe? What will you do? That's all the game is ever asking you. If you choose to release Cerebos, you might be surprised at his decision to end his own life. You probably assumed that he would want to be free to live his own life. Don't worry, you're in good company. You're not the only one who assumed that, but just like it was your choice whether to turn over Cerebos to the Kunari or not, it is his choice to do what he wants to do with the life he is given. And he chooses to follow the Qun, and the Qun demands he die. You might look at this quest and wonder what the point of doing all of this is if he's just going to die no matter what. Well, a great deal. In one scenario, he has that choice made for him regardless of what he wants. And in the other, he grabs it with his own two hands and says, "This is mine." For an individual for whom death is inevitable, it is not an insignificant thing for that death to be on your own terms. During this conversation, this dialogue can be exchanged.
I can't let this decision stand.
If you force choice, it is not choice. Your doubt does not make me wrong.
Indeed, it was exchanged on my first playthrough when I was in high school. I felt like I was punched in the gut when I first heard that line. I was one of those annoying atheists when I was young who believed they were right about everything, and if they just argued enough, then the people in my life who followed a religion I did not agree with would come around to my way of thinking. But the thing is, they had already made their choice. I was not, could not, be a factor in their beliefs. It was foolish and egotistical of me to think otherwise. If you force choice, it is not a choice. People must be free to live their own lives, even if you disagree with them. I may not agree with their religion or worldview, but if belonging to that belief system makes them happy, then I am the asshole for trying to take that away from them. Everybody walks through this world on their own path, and you can't judge someone for being on a different path than the one you walk. People say that everyone deserves respect. I disagree. Everyone deserves indifference. Let people live how they're going to live, whether that be a different religion, gender, sexuality, whatever. It's not your business if their perspective differs a little or a lot from your own. Now, the obvious caveat being, let people live their own life unless they are hurting others. If the path you walk is leading you to picket and verbally assault someone outside an abortion clinic, my path is going to lead me to beat your ass. I mean, I can accept the Kunari perspective all day long. I'm still going to fight them at the end of Act 2. Shouting, "Live and let live," while a group of people burn your city to the ground helps no one. If you let them, games can teach you a lot about life and empathy. I think one of the greatest things about them is how they require you to fill shoes you wouldn't normally fill, and asks you to consider perspectives you might not otherwise even realize exist. Shepherding Wolves stands out in my mind as an example of a moment in a game where a mirror is held up to me, and I am asked who I am and who I want to be. And I think I can safely say that I like my answer.